Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Saturday. Keith, I don't know what you're going to say, but hit me with it.
It's a weekend update.
All right, let's go. I like it. Weekend update edition of the NBA Front Office. You know, I was just thinking, Keith, we say this every Friday. We say if something big happens over the weekend, we'll jump on. It's been a while since we've needed to jump on over a weekend. Here we are, Saturday episode of the show. I guess we might as well just start off with the big news because we got a few other things to get into, of course. But the big news that Jamal Murray has agreed to a deal with the Denver Nuggets. He's got a 4-year extension, 208 or 209 million, depending on whether you believe Woj or Shams.
It's 208. It's just shy of 208.
Okay. All right. So that's where it's at. So 208, $8 million. I guess let's just dive right into that. What do you think about the deal, the decision? I kind of feel like this is whether or not you want to buy that Jamal. He had a terrible summer. He was not good in the playoffs efficiency wise. He was not good in the Olympics, but the Nuggets had to do this, didn't they?
Yes. That doesn't mean necessarily I love it, right? Because sometimes you are in a spot where you have to make a signing. Otherwise, you're going to be in a weird place. And, you know, it was one of those things that had to get done. And yeah, but it's in a little bit of a spot where one might be a little sour by the time we get to that fourth year. It sounds like everything's fully guaranteed. Doesn't sound like there's any options. So yeah, it's by no means bad. I would not even attempt to say that. I'm just a little worried if something is going on with Jamal Murray that keeps him from being the Jamal Murray we saw in the Nuggets title run. That's rough, right? For the Nuggets, because that's just tough. To see it kind of come out like that. We don't have it in Spot Track yet because I know our guy who updates it on the weekends, he's out on the soccer field coaching right now. He's coaching a couple of soccer teams in his club there. So we'll get that updated later. But yeah, I mean, you're locked in now. You've got 3 max guys with Jokic, Murray, and Porter. Aaron Gordon's going to need a new contract next summer because I think he'll probably opt out after this year. So your kind of Nuggets are what they are for now, unless there's any kind of trade. So not bad, but I don't feel great about this contract.
And this is mostly stemming from your concern that what we saw from Jamal Murray in the playoffs, which despite he hit big shots against my Lakers, and that I think masked how poor his efficiency was. He actually shot I want to say it was like 29% from 3 in that series. Did not shoot the ball well at all. In fact, I'll pull the exact stats here, but is that just your concern that is who he is now, that's going to continue? I mean, and I get it because in the Olympics, I saw him and I thought it didn't look like it was just that he was shooting. It looked like he lacked confidence, which was weird because he's not a player who lacks confidence. I mean, he had just hit big shots against the Lakers. He didn't perform well against the Wolves, but this is not a player that I've ever looked at and thought, man, this guy lacks confidence. But that was my read on him, seeing him play with Team Canada. So clearly the Nuggets think that's the outlier and that he will go back to being the guy that he is. But how real do you think it could be?
Yeah, so there's a combination, right? There's the worry that the last couple times now we've seen him play high level important basketball games, he hasn't been very good. The other worry that I have is first 3 years in the league, Jamal Murray, 82 games, 81 games, 75 games. These are regular season games played. Third year, played 59 games, but that's the pandemic season, whatever.
Yeah.
The next 3 seasons, 48 games, 65 games, 59 games. That's a little worrisome. Now, last year was by almost every statistical measure his best year in the NBA. 21 points per game, 48% from the field, 42.5% from 3. He averaged 4.1 rebounds, almost a career high 6.5 assists per game. So he really had a nice year. He also blocked this is a weird thing, 39 shots in 59 games. Like that's a lot of blocks for Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
But then you go into the playoffs last year, 40% from the field, 32% from three, really struggled as the playoffs got deeper in. Then, because Real GM is awesome and has the stats, in the Olympics this year, played in 4 games, averaged 20 minutes in those 4 games, 6 points on 29% shooting and 14% shooting from three for a Canada team that, by I think every measure, underachieved. They should have been, they probably should have been a team that was a medal team, and they finished 5th. So that's not where they want to be. Yeah, just not a good run for Jamal Murray. I'm a little worried that something's going on with his knee. Is that not right? Is that what caused him to miss time over the summertime? What was going on with all this cautiousness? Why did it take so long to sign this extension? But the reality is the Nuggets really didn't have another choice because they weren't going to let him play it out and go into unrestricted free agency, where he very likely would have been the best truly available free agent. So they kind of had to do this.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like it's not, you're not going to be able to replace him if he walks away next summer or anything like that. Now maybe they could have looked to, I guess, try to trade, but he won a championship for them. So here's
Sure.
those Olympic stats that you were just referencing over on Real GM. I mean, just yikes.
Brutal.
And that's how this could go bad. And you've got a Nuggets team, Keith, that they already were, we talked about this the other day, they were dead last in the NBA in 3-point attempts last season. Obviously, they can find success without that, but you just lost Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. There, I think, puts more pressure on Jamal Murray, who shot, again, 43% when we round up from 3 last season. So that's, look, he shot the hell out of the ball last season. That's phenomenal.
He's outstanding in the regular season. Yep.
Yes. But when you look at this, if you have any concern that something is going on, then this could become very problematic because the Nuggets are going to be that much more reliant this coming season on Jamal Murray to knock down shots, to be hyper efficient. And the guy that we've seen against my Lakers, against the Wolves, and playing for Canada was not that guy. And so that's the risk here for the Denver Nuggets. Not that they should have done something else, but that's the gamble that they're taking. It's the gamble they kind of have to take in this situation with Jamal.
And you called it out, I think, in our last show, maybe it was the one before that. They were last in the league in 3-point attempts in the regular season. Yep. They were 10th in the league in efficiency, which says you probably should be getting up more. Now there's a question of if they got up more, what would that have done? But to that point, they had their number one guy in 3-point attempts per game. This probably would be a little bit of a surprise to most people. Do you know who it was?
In 3-point attempts per game?
Yep.
Is it something? It feels like the answer should be Michael Porter Jr.
It was Michael Porter Jr.
Okay.
At 6.8.
I thought there had to be a curveball thrown in there somewhere.
Now, you could have told me it was Murray. You maybe could have even told me it was Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Because more than half of his shots per game were 3-point attempts. But Pope, 41% last year. Porter Jr. was at 39.7% on 6.8 attempts. That's really pretty good. And he's that guy who half of his shots are 3-point attempts. They're just not getting up very many because Murray, it's only like a third of his shot profile or 3-pointers, despite the fact that he shot 42.5. But the reason I'm saying all that is they're going to need him to take even more this year with Caldwell-Pope out of the fold. And Christian Braun, he's okay. We're going to see if he can build on it. 38% last year, but he only took 2 a game. So pretty minimal amount of attempts there. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with the Nuggets for a lot of reasons. But now, if we go beyond just the on-court stuff, they're locked into this group, right? You are really locked into Jokic, Murray, Porter Jr. Then we'll see what happens. I probably think Aaron Gordon as well. Now, not to say you can't make a trade. Obviously, any one of those guys is pretty tradable. Even Murray, unless Murray over the next 2 years can't play at all, like he's can only play 40 games or something, then the deal starts to become a lot like Zach LaVine's contract looks like. But for now, it kind of it's definitely still movable, but you didn't sign him with the idea of moving him. You signed him with the idea of him being your guy alongside Jokic for the next 4 seasons.
Keith,
the hotel.
what do they do from here with Aaron Gordon? Because you look at Aaron Gordon, like we look at Jamal Murray's situation, and we say, well, he was a free agent next summer. You can't let him walk away for nothing, and so you needed to do this, and that's fair. But Aaron Gordon can be a free agent next summer too. He's got a player option now. Maybe they feel pretty comfortable that he's going to pick that up. I mean, 22 million. I would think maybe he can get. I guess maybe it depends on what this season plays out. Like for him, but 22.8 million next season for Aaron Gordon. He could walk away in free agency. So could we see an Aaron Gordon extension come along as well? And then they're really locked into that Jokic, Murray, Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon quartet.
Yeah, and I think we're going to. And Aaron Gordon, it feels like Aaron Gordon should be like 33 or 34. It feels like he's been in the league forever, but he's 29. He's not.
He was young in the draft.
Yeah, he was very young in his draft class. Now, also, if we want to go back and refer to more with the shooting that we talked about briefly before, Aaron Gordon is a guy who, since he's joined the Nuggets, he really doesn't take threes anymore. Like I think he only took like 2 a game last season. So that's really come like out of his shot profile. And that the Magic had kind of almost forced him into like, we need you to take 4, 5, 6 3-pointers a game. And it was never at a very high efficiency. And I think Denver was like, yeah, let's just take him if you're wide open in the corner. Other than that, we don't want you shooting him. But he shot like 19%, 29%. I don't know, something really bad last season. 29% on 1.9 a game last season. So, you hit a point with Aaron Gordon where it's like, yeah, at some point does something have to give, because I think the Nuggets, by not re-signing Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and they said it was because they didn't want to deal with the aprons and the restrictions that would have come around that. I don't buy that. I think this is more of the Nuggets saying, we don't really want to be a super duper expensive team. I'm not fully sold Aaron Gordon is there. I think they may take a wait and see approach. Let's see what this year looks like. Otherwise, then do we go looking for more of a bargain option? Because Porter Jr., one of the nice things with him is you could play him at the 4 and go with a more kind of traditional type small forward. He's big enough to handle that. He rebounds well enough to handle that. And then you go with, we're going to go with more of a wing, or we're going to go with a guard and play Christian Brown more at the 3 or something like that. We'll see how that comes together for them. But yeah, it's a bit of a weird spot for this Nuggets team. I still think they're going to be very good. I think they're going to be right there in the mix to make the NBA Finals. I just don't feel as good about them as I have over the last few years going into the season.
Well, and part of this is the new CBA coming into effect. We can say it's the Nuggets they should pay and all that kind of stuff, but this is also part of the new CBA. It's you want teams that are good and teams that are up at the top to have to make some difficult decisions. That talent gets redistributed to other places around the league. In this case, the loss of the Denver Nuggets was the gain of the Orlando Magic. And that way you don't wind up with one team just sitting at the top for a decade or whatever. I know we both are fans of franchises that have more often than not been up at the top. Yours is at the top right now. But the new CBA by design it was one where it's to create those difficult decisions for some of these teams at the top, have that talent cycle out, teams at the bottom not stay at the bottom for too many years, and those teams can come up. So again, you keep fans engaged, and that's kind of the life cycle of the NBA team. And I think the Denver Nuggets are a good early case study of how this all works. And you can make an argument, look, yeah, the Nuggets should have just paid, they should have gone into the second tier, they should have kept KCP or whatever. But ultimately, whether it was just the money or the aprons that scared them off, they, as a really good team, had to make some tough decisions. And that's really, I think, what the NBA is looking for moving forward in order to move away from essentially dynasties, for better or worse. And we'll see if it puts us into this grand era of parity or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, everything in the NBA is, if you're getting into that, like I'll call it the second contract group with the same core guys, where it's take rookie scales out of the mix, but you're getting into that second non-rookie scale contract group. So where Jokic is, where Murray is, you've done pretty good keeping your window open. You've obviously built a nice team that can contend long enough and play well enough. But for most teams, we're going to be in a spot where it's going to be about a 4 to 5 year window. And if you're not getting it done, it's probably going to be a major reset. That doesn't mean you trade everybody, but you're probably going to be resetting around whoever it is you determine to be. That's our guy going forward. He's our star guy. We're going to reset things, orbit it around him a little bit, and we'll kind of go from there. So, it's the Nuggets are a really interesting test case of how long can you stretch this out, because all these guys right now, they're in their prime, right? Almost this entire roster outside of maybe Christian Brown and a couple other guys. And then you got guys like Westbrook's obviously post prime. But for the most part, a lot of these guys are really in their prime right now on the Nuggets. So it's going to be, can you get another title, another finals appearance out of them before the inevitable comes? I'll make a prediction. Jamal Murray probably doesn't make it to the end of this contract in Denver unless they win another title in the next couple of years. If they win another title in the next couple of years, you know how it goes. You start convincing yourself of a lot of things of like, well, we can keep this guy. We just want a title with him and all that stuff. Even if in your heart of hearts, it's maybe time to do something different. But it's a different spot.
And the nostalgia starts to factor into that. There's the sentiment of, well, we owe him. This guy brought us 2 titles. We want to make sure that he becomes a legend, and he already is, but for bringing a title to Denver, but it cements the legacy that much more, and all of that. I don't want to go as far as to say like it's Steph Curry with the Warriors or something like that, but it's a little bit more difficult for a franchise to give up a player like that down the road, even if it's clear that it's time to part ways. There's that, but that's our guy, and remember what he did for us, and that type of stuff starts to factor.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, just want to acknowledge it because there's been quite a bit of it in the chat. Hey, it's awesome. I'm so glad so many of you guys are able to catch a live show, because a lot of people are like, I can't catch the live show. So don't get used to it. This is probably not going to be a regular thing on a Saturday afternoon, but we're glad you guys were able to. Yeah, in September, certainly. Definitely glad you guys are able to catch us live and hang out with us for a little bit here on a Saturday. It's been it's great to have you.
Yeah, happy to have you all here and see you here. Let's get into a few of our fan questions and comments here before we get into any other topics. Will from Texas with I think this question comes out of like my 8th grade algebra book. My friend Kurt thinks it goes up based on percentage of the cap and can be more than the $208 million. So Jamal Murray's deal reported. My friend Christina believes it is fixed and good to lock in now before the cap goes up due to the TV deals. Who is correct? Is Jamal Murray's deal tied to a percentage of the cap, or is it a static number year in, year out?
I think Will from Texas has checked in a handful of times. He's got a lot of friends who love ball, man. Like Kurt and Christina,
he's a
Saturday afternoon arguing about the Jamal Murray cap figure. So the $208
Kurt is on a train from New York traveling at 75 miles per hour. Christina's on a train from LA traveling at 55 miles.
You're going to meet in Denver. How fast does each train need to be going? So the $208 million is based on the cap going up 10% from this year to next year, and then Murray getting a 30% of the cap max. So they're both kind of right in a way. So it is in that 10%, that is the max the cap can go up. If the cap was not maxed out when the new TV deal kicks in, it probably would have gone up 30 or 40%. But remember, they put a cap on it to smooth it out because they didn't want to have a summer where we had a rehash of 2016 with a whole bunch of people. Yeah, that's it. Like spike. Let's go.
Hit that like button.
Let's get that like spike. Come on now. So what they did was they capped it at 10%, and then it can't go up more than 10%. That's what the $208 million is based off of. So there could be a slight bit of wiggle room in there, but it's probably fairly well fixed in now. And that's why that number came in that way.
And so for these max deals, that will be if the cap only goes up 5%, Jamal Murray is going to make less money than what's being projected right now. However, if you have a guy just top ahead, like Gabe Vincent for the Lakers, say he's making, I think, $11.5 million this season and then $12 million the next season, or maybe it's 11 and 11, whatever, 11.5 and then $12 million next season. The cap only goes up 5%. He's still going to make his, say, $12 million next season.
Yeah. Or like let's think about like Ivica Zubac, right? His contract came in, and his contract is at a fixed number, not tied to a percentage of the cap. It's really those max deals that you end up tied to a percentage of the cap. Minimums go up by the same percent as the cap does. Rookie scale go up, but we don't worry too much about those right now because those aren't signed in advance. It's those in advance deals that are signed, like these max extensions. That's why these are where they're at.
I like this. People have been talking about in the chat about what sports networks we should appear on. Mama said Keith and Trevor to sing with. I know he meant sign because NBC would not want us to sing. Actually, I've never heard Keith sing, but
no,
so I don't know. Maybe you have the voice of an angel. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about all that.
but
we could sing Round Ball Rock if they bring it back.
Yeah,
right? Because that's coming back. We assume with NBC, but yeah. Nah. Yeah, I can drop some bars occasionally, every once in a while.
That's right. That's right. All right. So just to kind of put a bow on all this, essentially you've got your veteran minimum or your minimum deals that are going to be tied to the cap. You've got your mid-level exception, all your exceptions that are all going to get tied to your taxpayer, your MLE are going to get tied to the cap, and then your max contracts, your 30%, 35% max, those are going to get tied to the max. So those are the players that are going to be especially keeping an eye on, okay, what's the percentage? Whereas a guy who's, it's a 3-year deal for 30 million, 10 million flat per year, it can be a 2% rise in the cap. It could be a 10% rise. They're not going to make more or less money.
Yeah, and then what doesn't change is the raises off of that first year are 8%. So it will the cap will outpace the raises. That is a thing that will happen. That's why if you look at some of the max salaries, like when we have on Spot Track, we have the percentage of cap next to them. You'll see, like, for example, Jason Tatum's extension starts at 35% of the cap, but it'll actually drop as a percentage of the cap because the cap, at least for the next several years, because of that spillover due to the smoothing, is expected to be 10%, which outpaces the 8% raise in the thing. Also, the 10% is getting really nerdy here. Why not get nerdy on a Saturday afternoon? The 10% is a compound raise, meaning it's 10% off of each year. The 8% is non-compounding. So the 8% is off the first year. So let's just say it's an 8% raise, which works out to $4 million. Then it's $4 million flat that it goes up each additional year. It doesn't compound. You don't get 8%, then an 8% off of what you had
the new
off
number.
of that. It's not.
So the 8% is not really 8% the next year.
Correct.
It would be 7%, 7 and change.
Do me a favor on. I know you had Spot Track up. Pull up Tatum's just because it really stands out there because he's at that 35%. And we can actually show it on the screen, and it's probably easier for people to see than just me shouting a bunch of numbers. But that's part of it. So so that 8% comes, and I'll tell you exactly what his number is. But so it's a little small, but you guys can go to Spot Track and check it out yourself. But so Jaylen Brown, he's at the top, so we can just use his because it's the same thing. 35% this year. Then it's 34.4, 33.6. So it actually goes down because it's outpacing the growth. And his is like, what is that? Almost $4 million. But if you look at it, that number is the same number. It goes up each subsequent year. Year 1 to year 2, then it's the same number year 2 to year 3.
Interesting.
So there you got a little lesson on compound raises versus non-compound raises.
Hey,
always want compound interest. Yeah, you always want compound interest if you can get it.
Yes. Yep.
And you don't want to pay it.
You don't want to pay compound interest.
Exactly. But if you're on the other side, you don't want compound interest.
No.
But if you can get it for you want compound interest. Helps you out.
There you go. Okay. Ollie said Robert Downey Jr. getting $50 million per for the next Avengers movies, and Jamal Murray getting $50 million a year. Which amount is crazier?
This might be the most front office show question we've ever gotten.
It really is.
I love it.
It really is. Gosh. See, here's the I can make a case for both of them.
I just love the question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Which amount is crazier? I'm gonna say
How about Jamal Murray? Yeah,
I'm more confident people are going to show up to that movie just to see what
yep.
Robert Downey Jr. looks like as Doctor Doom. I'm more confident in that than I am that Jamal Murray's struggles over the summer are the outlier, and that's not a sign of some sort of physical decline or something from him.
And we'll be watching, in theory, the Avengers movies over and over and over for years to come. Jamal Murray's season will end, and then his contract will end, and then that'll be it. Right? Whenever
Yeah.
it ends, and it's gone. Whereas, Disney will be making money off Robert Downey Jr. in those Marvel movies for years to come for that. And that's
And
also
this is a good if there's a tiebreaker, it's very, very simple. Robert Downey Jr. saved us from Thanos, Jamal Murray did not.
Yeah, but
That is
Iron Man saved us from Thanos. Doctor Doom's presumably going completely the other direction. So
I would imagine, but I hope, and this is, I don't want to get too deep into MCU and all that, but my hope is that maybe not in the first movie, because you know how sometimes the villain in the first movie becomes like the anti-hero in the next movie?
Sure.
Like this is just the most recent one. Not that it was a good movie, but the villain in Orm in Aquaman becomes like kind of an anti-hero comedic effect type of guy in Aquaman 2. I kind of hope not that Doom becomes in any way the quality of that second Aquaman movie, but my hope is that we see Doom at first. He can be the big bad guy, and then somewhere down the road, I want to touch upon that kind of anti-hero vibe that sometimes he gets due to that moral compass and everything that he has. That's, I think, where I would like to see this go.
I'm going to pull this one up from Timothy Turner. Thanos was right. I heard this on a podcast, though, and it kind of blew my mind. Thanos' whole mission was, like, he thought he was doing a good thing, right? He knew he was thought he was going to get to a good end result through not great means. I think the question that was asked in this podcast, which then it hasn't really honestly left my mind since, was instead of saying there's not enough resources for everybody in the universe and he kills half the universe, why didn't he just double the universe's resources?
Right? I know.
Like the Infinity Stones in theory could do anything.
Yeah.
Why didn't you just double the universe's resources?
So there you go. That's just exhibit A for why Thanos is a jerk. Like you could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
Just double the resources.
He just wanted to kill a bunch of people.
That's right.
100%. Yeah.
Thanos.
All right, we've got a few more basketball questions. Let's bring it back around before everybody checks out.
Let's go here. Thank you. I didn't. Johnny says,
very kind.
You are two of the most humble, hardworking content creators, and your work does not go unnoticed. Thank you both for everything you do, dynamic duo. Hey, we really do appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. This is, in the end of the day, we want to have fun and hang out and talk ball, and we have a blast with it. It's great. Thank you for that.
Mamadou said, has this new CBA destroyed NBA dynasties? I think time will tell.
Yes.
But like Keith, even your Celtics, above that second tier apron, sooner rather than later, they're going to have to make the decision. Do we want to keep this team together and then 7 years from now, our draft pick automatically goes to the back of the first round and we can't trade that pick and all these other things, are continuing to add up? Or do we make some difficult decisions? And then does that cause them to take a step back? And then for teams, the question is, can you bring in if you have to make that difficult decision of, hey, role player X now is too expensive. Do you have a young player that you've built up to the point where they can take over that role or not? That's now the challenge for NBA teams, to find somebody cheaper that can do that job. But that's the new CBA. So we will see if it ultimately kills dynasties or if teams are able to funnel young talent on cheaper contracts up to replace any of those difficult decisions that they have to see walk away.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into it here on a Saturday afternoon, and it might be something I may write about, but I have a thought working in my head that if you kind of related to that window conversation, if you want to extend your windows and you don't just have the ability to pay whatever penalties are thrown at you, you have to draft and develop well. And that includes develop deeper beyond the draft, meaning you have to kind of be like Memphis and Miami, where you have to find guys in the G League, coach them up, and turn them into rotation players. Now, what happens is you turn them into rotation players for between $2 and like $10 million. And then eventually they move on, a la Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, guys like that, for the Heat. But you then have to do it again. And then you have to do it again and again. And that's going to be the way you're going to keep these teams viable, because you can't just build a 3 or 4 man roster where they eat up all of your cap, put you deep into those aprons, and then you're in a spot. So we can get into a different deeper conversation on that down the line. But that's just something that's in the back of my mind of you have to find cheap replacement level talent over and over again. And if you get a guy on a minimum to fill a rotation role for you for a year or two, you're that much further ahead, because that's money you can then invest elsewhere. So it's been really, really important to see. So we'll see. I'm not going to say it's killed dynasties, because some smart teams will come along and figure it out a way to extend it, but we'll see. And yeah, this is also true. I think there's some truth to this comment too by BC that says dynasties built the NBA. I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That said, I think the NBA is looking towards what they want, or what they don't want is fans of 26-ish teams saying we don't have a shot.
Yep.
It's and again, it's a bigger conversation that we can have at some point, but this is, the direction that they're going. And you're right about having to build up young talent, and that becoming an even bigger thing, a bigger priority for teams, because if you do find that guy on a cheap contract, that's going to put you ahead of the game essentially. And this is maybe spells doom for my Lakers, Dr. Doom for my Lakers. It's that you have to hit on the singles more often. The moves in the margin are going to now matter more in the new cap environment that we're in. And that is an area specifically where my Lakers have come up short, but another number of other teams as well. Those moves that may seem minor on the surface, that people go, when you get the sarcastic responses, when you tweet out something about a news story or whatever that comes out, and people go, oh, game changer, oh, power shift, and things like that.
Yeah.
No, it's that kind of stuff that is now going to be amplified and matter more to create the big picture of what your team is and the level of success that they can achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's absolutely right. Those all matter. Like all those matter. Let's hit on a couple other brief news things, just because people were asking about them in our live show yesterday. Jetty Osman back to Europe. He's going to Panathinaikos in Greece. It's as done as you can trust the owner's word, who shared an announcement that he's signing with them. So I think that's pretty spot on there. So he's headed to Greece. So takes just another kind of one of those ones, right, where people are like, oh, cool, Jetty Osman signed. Well, he could have helped the team in the NBA as another playable wing. He had a nice year for San Antonio before they pivoted to playing younger players. So really, let's see what happens with that one. But the Panathinaikos Olympiacos battles are going to be pretty cool. Not that they always aren't over in Greece; they're always great. But both of those teams have really loaded up with guys.
We also have Tristan Thompson back to the Cavs on a 1-year deal. So he returns there. But that's a veteran presence with the Cavs, somebody who's been around Cleveland for a while, obviously. And so he just gives you another veteran off the bench to turn to that can occasionally step in and do some things for you in a game. But again, these are the kind of guys that you're going to need to get you through an 82-game season. So Tristan Thompson, veteran guy in the locker room, and a guy that can give you a little bit coming off the bench at the big position.
Yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. He's a guy. What they used him for a lot last year was, hey, teams are kind of tossing Evan Mobley around and banging on him. Go out there and set a tone. You deliver a hard foul the other way and let him know. Then you've got Davis Bertans. This one's a little weird because it doesn't seem fully locked in yet. He's going to join. It's a brand new team. It's called BC Dubai, which is as it sounds like, being played in Dubai. That's what was reported. This was like overnight while we were all sleeping, is that he's going there. Then there was some reporting that, hold on, he's not done with the NBA. But then Mark Stein came on and said, yeah, he might be kind of skipping going to do a workout with the Warriors to maybe join this team in Dubai. Mm-hmm. Now, here's what's interesting. This BC Dubai, they're actually playing this season as part of the Adriatic League with teams in Serbia and Croatia and Slovenia. So that's they're effectively an expansion team for them. What's also interesting is their club, because they wanted a team and they wanted to be in a high profile league, they're covering all travel whenever a team has to go play them in Dubai. Wow. So they're paying for the teams to come play them, which is just the Davis Bertans part is interesting, right? Because not that he's a great player, but still can really shoot and was okay with Charlotte last season when he got some minutes down the stretch. So that part's interesting. What's interesting to me is keep an eye on this being a thing just to tuck it away, that these Middle Eastern cities, countries, whatever you want to call them, and maybe if the NBA wants to expand into Europe, you get some of that big money over there. And if they're willing to say, hey, we'll cover some of the costs for teams, don't be surprised if we see an expansion eventually, not an expansion team, but an expansion of not just preseason games, but maybe somebody will go play more regular season games abroad because it'll be fully covered and all those kind of things, because we may see that become a thing that happens, because a big part of it is, the biggest part is nobody wants to go halfway around the world in the middle of the season. But if you could tie it to, you're going to go play there right before the All-Star break, okay, sure, why not, right? Or something like that. So just something that popped up for me.
So you're talking about teams occasionally going and playing some games. They're not a team, not like a separate league or division based.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're going to see that.
Right.
Yeah, that's just too much, right? Like that's where, I mean, in some time, I don't know if it'll happen in our lifetimes, but yeah, maybe like we'll see a team based abroad. I think what we're more likely to see is, I think the NBA takes the model that they've used with the Basketball Africa League. They blow it out a little bigger in Europe. And what they do is they partner with, whether it's France or maybe it is the Euro League, kind of, remember what the Premier League teams and then a bunch of the other teams, there was going to be like the new Super League or whatever it was. Then everybody flipped out and was like, hey, you're going to kill off all these other things, here. So, I don't know with all that there. But we'll see. Apparently, breaking news here. You don't need to play the drop.
I was almost going. I've got my hand on the button.
You could, if you want to, go ahead. We haven't played it in a while.
Let's
but
just
it doesn't.
Do it. We haven't played it so long. Here we
do
go.
It's fun.
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story.
I couldn't help myself.
Markieff Morris back to the Mavericks. Got to be a veteran minimum deal. That's all they really have to offer. So back to the Mavericks. What's interesting though is Mavericks don't have a roster spot for him right now. Dallas is. Let me just make sure I've got that correct. Unless they move on from AJ Lawson, which maybe that's how they create the spot, they're full up. They because Spencer Dinwiddie got their last open spot. So my guess is it'll come down to Markieff Morris versus AJ Lawson there. And we got a chance to play the breaking news drop, which is
always fun.
The real win here out of all of this.
That's right. That's the most important piece out of all. I mean, 34-year-old Markieff Morris, hey, he's not a bad guy to have, an enforcer and all that kind of locker room. I mean, kind of similar in terms of role to like Tristan Thompson. Like, hey, that guy's causing problems. Go take care of it for us. But the most important thing is we got to use the breaking news drop. So yeah.
Hey, did you listen to the most recent Hoop Collective podcast?
I did not listen. I started it. I have not gotten through the whole thing.
So it's like midway through, they're talking about the Lakers, and I don't know if this already got picked up and aggravated, but Brian Windhorst, it just kind of perked me up they were talking about Austin Reeves specifically and
Yep.
like why the Lakers didn't want to trade him because JJ Redick really believes in him and all that
My
stuff. And he's
my
a
video
big
on
fan.
that for Lakers Nation is in the chamber right now.
Okay,
It's
so there you go.
it's sitting in drafts.
What
ready to go.
stood out to me was this thing was Windhorst said the vibe coming from the Lakers is this is a development season where they are turning towards development and they've got a new head coach and they're prioritizing developing young players. And I was like, that's kind of wild when you have LeBron and AD. Like, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I certainly wouldn't say that's wrong. And it clearly be very clear. He did not say this was reporting and anybody told him that. It was just, he's like, that's the vibe you're getting from them, is this is more of a development season. I thought that was really interesting.
It is really strange. I mean, again, going back to the new CBA, which they've referenced a lot, and that's why they've talked a lot about how they need to develop players and all of that. But yes, that is a strange path to go down if you've got LeBron and AD. And then if you've got LeBron and AD and LeBron's a free agent and he needs to re-sign, why is he re-signing if the Lakers are telling him it's a development year?
Yeah.
Like that doesn't,
that's
that
weird
is,
too.
there's something isn't lining up there. And it could be as simple as the Lakers are putting out there like, oh no, we don't have to go all in right now and all that, because in all the trade negotiations they're having, teams are saying, you guys have LeBron, he's turning 40, you have to go all in right now. So give us all your picks for Jeremy Grant, and stuff like that. So that could be part of it. It could be a pushback against kind of the whole trade market that the Lakers have been dealing with this summer. But yeah, it does seem like there's something to them really looking to developing a system. And this was something that happened when they were pursuing Dan Hurley. They were talking about creating a program and one that was going to develop players and all that. I think they still want to do the same thing with JJ Redick. But I mean, we saw it with the Warriors trying to do the 2 timeline thing. It's difficult to do 2 things well at the same time. What's the Ron Swanson quote? You don't want to half-ass 2 things. You want to whole-ass 1 thing.
Yep.
That's certainly a subplot to watch for the Lakers this season, and concerning. I think if that's really what they're going to try to do is develop players while trying to placate LeBron and AD and win right and give them a team that can win right now.
Yeah, it'll be. I mean, if we roll out of the gate and Dalton Connect's playing 30 minutes a night, starting opening night, like that would be like, oh, all right, I guess this is a different
they really
kind
are
of season here. But
right.
Yeah, I kind of think it's probably more of a, hey, let's tamp down expectations a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're sending a message of we're not desperate to make moves. But my guess is it'll probably be hey, if we're sitting around January 1st and we're 6th or 5th, 6th in the conference, then you might see something a little bit, that's funny, a little bit different. I love it.
That's a great comment. for podcast
funny.
Listeners, the comment came in. They gave Rob Pelinka a nickname. Rob, we got food at home, Pelinka.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
That's interesting. I'll pull this one up from Sean Garner. We talked about the Gigi Jackson injury a couple shows ago. Yeah, we'll see. It's probably bigger for Gigi Jackson than it is for the Grizzlies. Yeah. But we went in depth on that earlier this week when the news came out. How long it was going to be. But cool. All right. I think we're all caught up. It was
I believe so. I've got somebody earlier in the show asked, "Is this mean a Lakers Nation live show tonight?" No, I'm going to spend some time with family tonight and hang out and do all that kind of stuff. So there won't be that. But again, I do have a video coming out on Lakers Nation as soon as I finish this and we make up a thumbnail and all that. That'll be out there. I'd also like to ask you guys to check out the basketball bulletin, which we break down a lot of stuff there. So go check that out as well. Other than that, I think that this was fun. Keith, this is a fun way to spend a Saturday afternoon here talking some.
I love it.
Lakers basketball or some basketball, some Lakers, but also some NBA basketball and Jamal Murray and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and when we have reason to go live, it's never it's not that we're looking for reasons, but yeah. And now I'm gonna go finish watching Boston College absolutely dismantle Duquesne. They're up 35-0 right now at or I apologize. They punched one more in 42-0 at halftime.
So, wow.
I don't know how much I'm actually going to watch. We'll see. I may pivot back to watching some NBA stuff from last season.
That's what I did. I started digging back into some NBA stuff.
Love it.
I'm starting to ramp up and get ready for the season. Let's go. It's almost
Yeah,
here.
we're almost there. Almost there.
Almost there. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Saturday afternoon. We sure do appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber to the channel, please fix that. Hit the subscribe button. And of course, like this video as well. Podcast listeners, 5-star rating and review over on Apple Podcast, if you wouldn't mind. Till
We're
next time,
close to
everybody.
300 reviews. Let's push over 300
Get it.
reviews on over on Apple. If we can get a handful more, we're at I think 295. Last I checked.
Ooh.
Let's get that up over 300. That really does help people find the show. And believe it or not, a lot of people are still podcast only listeners.
Yep.
So try to push us up the Apple charts a little bit.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Thank you, everybody. Till next time. See ya and stay safe.